information regarding ongoing police operations on Twitter. So instead of getting bored and doing nothing, people decided, let's have some fun, and they started tweeting cats all over the place with funny comments, very interesting, all night long. This is a typical example of what I would say, the Belgian mentality. We are a people which loves surrealism, which loves all these kinds of interesting things. And we try to do the unexpected. In this case, the cats. Sorry. Yeah. So, people often ask, what is your role as a mediator? A mediator, that's someone who is very neutral. Well, I can tell you, this is not a modern concept of a mediator. A good mediator needs to create balance between the different parties. If you have one very powerful party in the government, and you have some very weak parties in the opposition, what you do, you try to bring them in balance, make them equal before you can talk. And what is very important is the role of people like you, the public, the media, who should engage in helping, supporting the creation of such a balance. This is what I used in order to support you, to raise awareness, to encourage you to really engage in creating this balance. Bring this balance back. This is essential for your democracy. It's basically also a way to promote standards and values. I don't take any side. I will not say this party is better than that party. What really matters is I will support and continue to support any party promoting and any person promoting democratic values. Sorry, it's something. Oh, sorry. That's a bit going too fast. The idea, the concept behind this, you don't have to write long articles. You just inform the people and citizens and people in the politics as well about what they really need to know. With this kind of statements, I would say there is no way of escape. If you see it, you cannot pretend that you don't understand it. There is no margin for interpretation. You cannot claim that I said or I intended to say something different. This is the message. It's a clear message. There is no space for interpretation. The good thing for me, as I said in the beginning, I'm very happy I'm not a diplomat. I'm just an ordinary citizen from another country, but I like doing these things because essentially what is very important, you always have, even as a mediator, you have to name the game. Tell to the people very clear what is the problem. How can you solve the problem? Engage them in this kind of discussions. No hilarious discussions, no fake discussions like I often see on television, but really to the point, this is the problem, and now let's look for the solution of the problem. Whether that works, that's something else. That's something we will see in the coming days and weeks. One example about the famous voter registry. What I don't understand, but you can help me out maybe, I don't get it. One day, we discovered that there are 360,000 problem names in that registry. And then you have a bunch of politicians who say, yeah, there is a problem, but it's less. It's only 80,000, 70,000. And what about the others? There is a problem, but there is no problem. You cannot fix a voter registry this way. The list of the voters, please maybe we need to call a plumber or some experts to fix this properly, but not this way. This is not proper, good politics. Recognize that there is a problem and let's get it solved. This, what you have today, I'm terribly sorry also for the people doing a tremendous job in the State Election Commission, but I'm terribly sorry to reaffirm this is not a serious voter registry. This is not the list that you deserve as a country to organize elections. This is a fact of life, I would say. At some point, because some parties find it difficult to deal with mediators, so they decided, you are not a mediator anymore, you are a tourist. Why did they say that? Basically, because I had the same day a long meeting with your Auditor General, that's the person who is controlling the finances of the government and so on, and of the public institutions. And I confronted her with the accounts of the biggest party in your country, not to name them, on the topic of salaries and wages for personnel. They spent in total amount in 2014 197,000 dinar. That's an average amount just enough to employ for 1 year one person. Can you explain me the biggest party in the country employing one single person? So I asked this lady, I said, what are you going to do about it? Is this not worth some investigation? And she claimed that everything was perfect, there was no problem, which I don't think so. If the biggest party who is in government claims that they only employ one person, then there is a problem that should be thoroughly investigated. Yeah? And people should go to the court for this at some point. This is something that I believe is a big problem in the system. But that same evening, the now former Prime Minister stated on one of the biggest TV channels that from now on, I'm not a mediator anymore, but I'm just a tourist, which I am happy to accept. You see, I enjoy the beach. But even there is a problem. There is a problem with the media. I didn't find any newspapers. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's interesting with these kind of memes, you can do a lot. What I try to do is not only to convey open messages which are very clear and where there's no margin for interpretation. It's sometimes also interesting to give double-sided messages. For someone who doesn't know anything about your situation, about the wiretaps in Macedonia, you can claim, yeah, what is this about? Yeah? But if you have the whole background and you know on a daily basis what's going on in this country and you watch this, then you say, yes, we get the message. Yeah? So the idea is here also you do in a sarcastic way, you indicate that there is a problem with these wiretaps. And for your information, according to my information at least, we cannot exclude, I'm very careful, but we cannot exclude that this is still ongoing. Yeah? It's ongoing not only here on the screen, but also in real life, which is a shame. Huh? Surrealism. Coming back to this was another reason why some people were very upset. It was in the run-up to the elections of 24th of April. This is one of the pictures from the famous Brussels lockdown. The title, the text is different, but what happened there in Brussels was one of these pictures. The suggestion I make here is just, okay, I give up. There will be no elections on the 24th of April because the conditions are not there. Can you imagine that in reaction to this, that your parliament on a Sunday morning calls for a special committee session to discuss this picture? how much more surrealistic can it be, I would say? As if in your country, this is more important. And I would like to look now into the future. That's one of my latest tweets from yesterday. What I also do, I use sometimes material that I get from other people. So people start sending and say, okay, please, if you can, use it. This is one of them. Again, I try to convey some clear messages. On the one hand, I try to tell you, yes, you are doing the right thing. In any democracy, you have the right to be heard. People have the right to go to the streets and to say to their government, listen to us. We have some important questions for you. This needs to be resolved. But apparently, it's difficult for the government to receive messages or to react to any messages. It looks sometimes like there is no government. There's no parliament for the moment, but maybe there's also no government because I don't see the government properly reacting on your request. A proper reaction would be that they immediately invite you to the negotiation table, wherever that might be, and start a discussion with you. Concerning the future, yes, we are discussing with many people the next steps and what is possible. Most probably, this will not include elections on the 5th of June. I don't know, but that's my feeling. Yeah. The way ahead is going to be a difficult way. It's not going to be easy. Yeah? Things will not be perfect as of tomorrow. But I can assure you one thing that we all should continue to believe. Yes, at one point, things will be different. You will be able to live again in a free, democratic society, where you don't have to run away, where you don't have to leave the country, but where people can and will be happy in their own country. This is essential. Freedom not only for you and the people who participate in the protest, but also freedom for those people who today and over the last couple of days were participating in counter-protests. They also will benefit from democratic freedom. Having no pressure to participate in manifestations. Not to be afraid to be fired, to lose your job tomorrow because you don't show up at a protest. That's democracy, that is freedom. For you, but also for them. Thank you.
Повелете прашање. Прашање?
Hi. Some people think that your way of transferring the message that you do is genius. Some think that it's retarded, but some people think that you're going out of your mind. And that this is your way of trying to stay normal. How would you respond to that?
Maybe it is indeed one of the many ways to stay normal in a difficult environment. Over the last couple of months, I had the opportunity to travel around in your country to talk to many people in different places. And I am astonished about the level of fear. People are afraid today. This is not good. I am astonished about the incredible high levels of organized corruption in this country. This is not good. It's your money in the end. If people try to steal it, you should act on that, and you have the right to react on that. I have seen the tremendous amount of people who are employed in a not normal way, to say the least. This is not good for your country. You end up in many places with people who are even not competent to do the proper business they should do. I am in particular discouraged by the educational system. Two things about that. I have seen textbooks where we promote a system of classes, where you claim that politicians and banking people and business people are better than other people. This is not good. I am also personally highly opposed to concepts of establishing new universities. You have already too many universities. Please do it with less. And delete this whole external testing system. The external testing system essentially is like I would buy a new car. I go to the garage, I buy the car, I leave the garage, and then someone will stop me and say, no, no, no. First now we are going to do a thorough inspection to see whether you can drive with this vehicle. The problem is, not the students are accountable for the fact that maybe they are not as competent as they should be at the end of the studies. This is the responsibility of the institutions, and it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that the institutions have sufficient control over the quality of the education. That's the way a system should work. So no external testing.
Hi, my name is Igor. Peter, thank you for your wonderful work. I'm personally amazed, and you've done a great work. My question is about the EU, the EU's response to the Macedonian crisis. I mean, this government has been in power for 10 years, and there's a bit of frustration in Macedonia that it happened on the EU's watch. A dictatorship developed on the foothold of Europe. So do you think that EU is aware that we have a dictatorship here, we have an authoritarian regime, and that they will support? Thank you once again. Great job.
Thank you. Yes, today the EU is aware that there is a serious problem and that we need to solve that problem properly. They are aware that it will be very difficult to just solve it by organizing elections, if not impossible. So there is progress. The only problem and the reason why things went wrong over the last 10 years on the side of the EU and the international community as such is basically that you are dealing there with an overload on bureaucratic people. So what they did, they checked the boxes whenever a new law was drafted and approved and it looked more or less okay. They said, okay, approved, move to the next law, without ever going into the field to check what was happening. Let me give you one example. You have a law on civil service, which is a good law, merit-based and everything is there that should be there, more or less. There was till recently one problem. There was an agreement to sign a methodology on what we call equitable representation, had basically to deal with the representation of other communities, non-majority communities in the civil service, which is also good. And then the problem is, two ministers needed to sign off on that. The Minister of MISA and one of the Albanian ministers, Mr. Jafferi. The Minister of MISA, Ivo Ivanovski at the time, refused to sign the law, this methodology. He said, we are not interested, we cannot sign this. Then he left, And then the government claimed, no, the law, this thing cannot be signed, this methodology, because there is only a deputy minister. A deputy minister cannot sign this. The law, however, is very explicit. If there is no minister, the deputy minister has all the obligations and rights of the minister. Okay? Then finally, the new minister came in and she said, suddenly, I'm willing to sign. Then Mr. Jafferi said, no, I'm not going to sign, because we want to include also the police and the military in this. So endless discussions. Now, my key question to people in the government, to ministers from all parties was, if your head of department drops dead, you need to replace this person tomorrow. What do you do with that? And then they told me, it's very interesting, you take a name and you go to the Ministry of Finance and you talk to the Minister of Finance and you ask him, can I employ please this person? And when he likes you, he will say, and the person probably, he will say yes. And if he doesn't like it, he will say no. Yeah? So that's the way you bypass your civil service legislation. This issue of the methodology was something that the EU was not aware of. They thought there is a nice law in place, now let's have it implemented, everything looks nice. So we need really to focus on thorough monitoring and following up, together with civil society organizations, on every step and every issue that comes up in the coming time. That's the only way we can make the difference.
Couple of weeks ago, you mentioned something about stealing European funds, how there are some informations about almost 40% of European funds were stolen here. Could you explain something more about that?
I cannot, of course, not give any details because there's an investigation ongoing for the moment. The only thing I can tell you is that there is solid evidence that indeed when it comes to the famous EPA funding, which is basically European funds, for which part of it at least is under the responsibility of the unit in the Ministry of Finance, that there was a lot of organized corruption there. That basically people, when they got a project, they had to take 40% of the amount for the project from the bank and return it in cash, in black, to certain people. That's not the way you deal with foreign investments. That's not the way you deal with your own budget. Because even with the normal national budget, we see that there are a lot of problems. The municipal budget, they need to be audited, they need to be controlled. I want to see someone really who can analyze them properly and pounce to any wrongdoing with that. This is about money, it's about taxpayers' money, most of it. It's about money also coming from the international community to support the development of your country. This is not acceptable. So this is a very good move from Brussels as well, that they decided to start a proper investigation on these issues.
Okay. Drugi prašanja? Yes. So coming from Macedonia and knowing what we know, knowing that our democracy is hot, but if, for example, me, I emigrated in one of the European Union states, and what if we feel that even their democracy is hot? Should we try to fix their democracy, or should we come back here and protest and ask questions and have fun? Thank you.
There is, of course, a different state of affairs. We all are aware in Europe that certain countries, Hungary, Poland, not to name them, are, sorry, I didn't say that, are in a problematic situation for the moment. But compared even to these countries, I would say your country is much worse. Sorry to say that, that's what I see. It could be much different. You have a tremendous potential. You have bright people still around in this country, so they didn't all leave. There is a potential to fix the problems, to bring really this democracy back on track. And the reason why we engage in this is because we see it as an obligation. As European citizens, if your ambition is to become one day part of this European Union, let's first fix the problem and let them make sure that you can become a decent member of the European Union. That's one thing. The other thing, and I fully agree with you, yes, we are not blind for the problems in the European Union. And I can tell you the increasing power of really right-wing, extreme right-wing parties in many countries is extremely worrying. Yeah? Democracy, and that's the lesson of this, democracy is never a done deal. You cannot say, no, we have democracy, now lean back, everything will be fine. Forget about it. Democracy is something that you have to fight for every day of your life. And if you don't do that, if people don't engage, if civil society doesn't stand up on a daily basis to fight for more democracy, to organize petitions, to go to the streets, to deal with migrants, and to raise awareness, yes, there is a huge problem in this European Union, another problem in different member states, then you will lose sooner or later your democracy. So please, democracy is an ongoing battle, I would say. That's a never-ending battle. Thank you.
Hello, Peter. Here. My name is Vasco. Just one question. You said that there is an ongoing investigation about the stolen money from the European funds. What happens? What will happen? What will be the sanctions if the allegations turned out to be true? How would how will the people responsible be dealt with? What's your opinion on it?
For the moment, of course, that is unclear what will happen. What I believe is very important, that is that Brussels realizes that not giving these funds anymore is not the solution. Many projects depend on, even within civil society organizations, but also in different ministries, depend on such funding. You can only improve the situation if you have the resources available, if there is sufficient money available to do and to make the improvements. So really saying, as of tomorrow, you will not get any funds is not really the way forward. However, it is very important to insist that people who might be involved in such criminal facts are prosecuted properly, that they cannot get away with this for free, that there is an issue of accountability, that if you do things and you are responsible to and accountable to the people in the end, that you have to reply to all the questions, and if things are wrong, you will pay the price for that. That's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, on the side of the EU, there are interim measures, temporary measures that can be envisaged, where instead of allowing particular services within different ministries to deal with this funding, that we take it away from there and transfer the competence to Brussels and directly manage this whole thing from Brussels. There's an alternative solution. It is possible as a kind of temporary measure as well, to ensure at least that yes, you have the right to get these funds, you need them as well, these funds, but that we have a guarantee, a much better guarantee at least than we have currently, that they will not be abused, that no money will disappear.
Short. Will you be back in an official capacity? You promised upon your leaving, so we are holding you to that.
I'm here today.
No. I was very precise. Official capacity, I said.
That's subject to the developments the coming months. It will depend on what happens with the elections, what happens with the different political parties. But my feeling is, yes, I will be back at some point in an official capacity.
Имаме още едно прашање?
Hello, sir. My name is Peter as well. And great speeches, love the presentation, love the cats, love you as a person. I have a very short question for you.
Yeah.
So we know it's going to be a very difficult process, but in your opinion, how long will it take for us to achieve a proper democratic state? Like years, months, decades, maybe a century?
No. My feeling is that two things are important. I will be very frank to you on this. The first thing is fixing the urgent problems. that we have on the table today. I think we need 2 to 3 years to have them fixed properly. After that, you can go to good elections. That's my feeling. Let's be realistic. It takes time to fix difficult issues. The other thing is, of course, the international context. When we discuss NATO accession, when we discuss the name issue of your country, I think these issues can be solved as well. It will be probably a compromise. The government will have to give in on certain issues. Maybe, and that's very unfortunate, you might even have to consider to change the name of the airport again. But I'm sure there is a way out. Yeah? If at any point in time there was a momentum in Greece on the other side to agree on a solution, it is now with this government that you currently have in Greece. Yeah? It is possible. The only problem is we need to have changes here as well in order to start effective negotiations on this issue. I'm very sure that the message from Greece is we are willing to negotiate, unfortunately not with this particular government. So that's the problem. Thank you.
Much for your questions, and thank you very much,
My pleasure.
Mr. Vanhoutte. If you have any other questions, probably you will stay during the break so we can ask you more questions. Thank you.